Welcome, everyone. My name is Stephanie Conant, and I'm a project manager here at North York Community House. Before introducing the speakers, I'd like to mention a few webinar considerations and make a few acknowledgements. Please mute yourselves until the end of the webinar, at which time we'll open it up to a question and answer period. You can also add your questions to the chat box, and the speakers can answer them at that time. As with all webinars, this one will be recorded, but all of the information is encrypted for confidentiality. So first off, I'd like to acknowledge you being here today. Because of COVID-19, it has been a really stressful time for ourselves, our families, our colleagues, and clients. Even in the best of times, there are vulnerable populations who we work with, like seniors and homeless people and youth at risk. Some communities can't even access things like clean drinking water, let alone Wi-Fi, to stay connected to family, friends, and information. One of those groups that is negatively impacted on a day-to-day basis, but particularly now by the virus, is Indigenous peoples. So finally, I wish to acknowledge the resilience, the enduring presence of First Nations, the Métis Nation, and Inuit peoples across the land we call Canada. What we call Toronto, our home, is the traditional territory of the Wendat, the Haudenosaunee, and the Anishinaabe, including the Mississaugas of the Credit Nation. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce the speakers. This webinar on best practices of intergenerational programming is comprised of two 20-minute presentations. Flora Devaraja is the coordinator of the Immigrant Senior Caregiver Project at North York Community House. She and I will be presenting from an intergenerational toolkit that was created by Youth Empowering Parents. Following that is Sharon Feldman. She's the supervisor of the Family Resource Center from Jewish Family and Child of Greater Toronto in the Vaughan region, and she'll be speaking about their program called Tots to Seniors. Take it away, Flora.
So thank you very much, Steph, and welcome again, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I want to begin by sharing our agenda with you. So we're going to start by talking about some of the benefits of intergenerational programming, or IG programming, some considerations around the use of technology for IG programs, and then Steph will be discussing the case study, which was our partnership with Youth Empowering Parents. And then before I hand it off to Sharon, we'll go over some practical considerations for developing and implementing IG programming. So just so we're all on the same page, we're defining IG programs as planned activities between two different age groups, which involve a purposeful and ongoing mutual exchange between those two generations. So the exchange can be in the form of knowledge, skills, resources, ideas, and/or experiences. In terms of the value of IG programming for a community, we know it's worth doing because it helps reduce social isolation and loneliness. We live in a digital age, and the way that we connect with each other and stay connected with each other continues to evolve very rapidly. We also have an aging population, so the demand for creating programs, policies, and practices for working with older adults continues to grow. And we're seeing an increase in age segregation, or a decrease in the interactions between older and younger generations in our communities, because so few of our spaces, both physically and ideologically, don't encourage interaction or cooperation between the different age groups. So one of the consequences of increased age segregation is the proliferation of ageist assumption against both groups. So you may have come across some of these assumptions in your own work, or perhaps at this moment you're realizing that you might have your own biases against these age groups. For example, Some of us might believe that youth are impatient teachers, or that they're lazy, or that they might take advantage of seniors. And similarly, many of us may hold beliefs about how well seniors are able to use technology, how quickly they learn new skills, or who they might prefer to spend their time with. But actually, in our experience at Niche, we found it to be quite the opposite. The youth we worked with have been very patient and generous when instructing, and the seniors have been quite savvy with the technology and eager not only to learn more about it, but to learn from the youth. So when it comes to building relationships in IG programs, there are two approaches you can take. The first is considered more of a one-way, in which it's very clear that one group is teaching or helping the other. So someone is giving and someone is receiving in that relationship. However, a more innovative approach that I think more of us should consider is the two-way relationship, in which the youth and seniors are seen as equal partners, both with something to give and receive from the other. Taking a strengths-based approach like this with seniors is still quite rare in our sector. Often we focus on what seniors might be lacking compared to other age groups, but we sometimes neglect the opportunity to create program models that enhance the senior's sense of agency, purpose, and contribution to their communities. It's also worth considering how we can create these opportunities for seniors who don't speak English and may have immigrated to Canada later in life. How do we help them recontextualize their sense of self and their ability to contribute to a new environment? IG programs are a really unique opportunity to do that. So there are lots of benefits to IG programs. We know that in youth, we see an increase in their self-esteem and academic performance, and a reduction of the negative stereotypes that they have against other groups. In seniors, we see reduced social isolation and loneliness, improved physical and mental health, and also better self-esteem and engagement with their community. And finally, the whole community benefits when we have robust IG programming. When we create stronger relationships across age groups, we have more cohesion as a community, which helps keep our communities safer and helps us build social capital. So technology is an incredibly powerful vector to help develop that sense of cohesion on a community level scale, but it's also hugely influential for increasing self-esteem in seniors who may have lower levels of digital literacy. So sometimes we think of technology as this source of exclusion, but really when we break it down, it's about a lack of access to the materials, to the technology itself, and it's a lack of knowledge. So once we're able to bridge those gaps, it's actually a very powerful tool. Especially for older immigrants, technology is really helpful for learning language skills. And in terms of IG programs, technology is really useful for allowing youth to become service providers and to create that connection with the older generation. Because youth have that great skill of being able to adapt very quickly and to learn what's new. We can use technology as an opportunity for the youth to become the knowledge brokers. So now I'm going to hand it off to Steph, who's going to talk a bit more about our case study with YEP.
Yeah, so our community partner, Youth Empowering Parents, created this intergenerational toolkit today, which we're presenting today, and which we'll be sharing in PDF form afterwards. YEP was founded in 2010 in Toronto's Regent Park community. The founders recognized that household dynamics in newcomer families tend to place children and youth in very important even mentorship roles, and that many immigrant adults learn life skills from them. Young people are often given the responsibility of tasks that involve helping or translating, like accompanying parents or grandparents to the doctor, translating parent-teacher interviews, interpreting documents, answering the phone or door. And at YEP, youth are teaching various and valuable skills like technology skills, English language, health literacy, financial literacy, environmental literacy, and even how to play the piano. This short video will give you a good idea of what YEP is all about, Youth Empowering Parents, and the benefits of intergenerational programs.
In Regent Park, there's a free after-school program that enables youth to educate adults.
Youth Empowering Parents is a pretty unique educational program that leverages an existing household dynamic. So in a lot of immigrant families, you'll find that kids are actually teaching their own parents a lot of English and computer skills. And the program had an idea of, let's bring that into a classroom.
Nice to see the both of you again. I feel it's really important that we embody this idea of school as the heart of the community. To have children build their communication skills, build their confidence, and have parents learn how to better use technology right here in the school.
So everybody grab a laptop and have a seat.
Rather than a traditional classroom with an instructor, the program trains youth with the skills to act as effective volunteer tutors, not only for their parents, but for other adults in the community.
Do you find it strange to learn from a young person?
No, very nice from a young person. Yeah, it's easy.
If not for the child teaching the parent, how much would it cost for a parent to get a tutor?
Roughly about $15 an hour. And if you factor in that our youth have contributed over 10,000 volunteer hours, that's quite significant economic value.
The program has been carefully designed by educators and staff members to be user-friendly and easy for a young person to use.
So you move the mouse and press the button.
Classes run for 90 minutes over the course of 12 weeks, focusing on either conversational English or the basics of computer skills.
Then you press OK.
Youth go over learning objectives and go through lessons at the pace of an adult participant.
Is she a good student?
Yeah, she's a great student. She's learning. She's getting better.
All lessons are pre-organized along with checklists to measure the progress of the adult.
They start off the program and they say, I don't know if I can be a leader, if I can tutor a parent, someone who's older than me. And then they sit down and they flourish in that atmosphere.
So we're seeing kids with improved outcomes in their academics. We're seeing students with greater confidence and better home communication skills.
So as you can see in the video, the YEP curriculum and training intends to be intuitive for both youth and older adults. It features images that are easy to use and are age-friendly, and it's tailored to simply enable youth to provide 100% of the teaching without intervention from program staff. And the facilitator or program staff ensures during the lessons that youth and seniors are building a mutually beneficial relationship. The facilitator stands as a coach, as you can see in this diagram, and not as an instructor. So their role is to help youth and seniors to improve skills they already have. One example of creating cross-organizational partnerships around intergenerational programming was Niche's Caregiver Seniors Social Isolation Project. We at North York Community House partnered with Youth Empowering Parents in the early stages of Enriches, which is a collective impact project that aimed to reduce isolation in seniors who are also family or informal caregivers. Niche's objective of reducing isolation among immigrant and newcomer senior caregivers was largely through mentorship. In the case of our partnership with YEP, we matched caregiver seniors to youth volunteers who tutor them in a culturally and linguistically appropriate way. We did this to engage young people in learning about and from immigrant caregiver seniors, and in turn, the older adults could share their experience and knowledge with the youth. From 2015 to 2019, Niche recruited and co-trained about 200 youth to work with diverse older caregivers, and Youth Empowering Parents in turn trained them in digital literacy and English language mentorship. And I don't know if you can tell by the photo, there. We didn't do it we didn't hold our programs just in schools. We were also in libraries and places of worship and other community centers. We considered it a symbiotic relationship, this partnership, a two-way path in understanding different generations and diverse cultures. Technology and English language skills building were simply the catalysts to nurturing these deeper bonds between older and younger generations and fostering connections for isolated caregivers through education and experience sharing. And as you can see from this testimonial, kids got a lot out of it. They were really delighted by their counterparts, the older senior caregiver. This young man said, "One of my tutees was especially excited by Google Translate, knowing that he could now read the Toronto Star and follow local news, allowing him to be more civically engaged." And the caregivers absolutely loved it. The older adults were really keen on learning new things and being connected to their families abroad. And for this lady who lost her husband not too long ago, it also reduced her isolation. So she said, "I never knew how to even turn on a computer. Now I'm coming here and using my own two hands. For me as a senior, losing my husband a year ago, this program helps me to come out of my comfort zone and out of my home."
Okay, so now we just want to get into some of the practical considerations that you should keep in mind when you're implementing or starting up an IG program. It's really important that we keep both groups safe when they're working together. So we want to maintain boundaries. So there are ways you can do this preventatively. In the beginning, you want to organize separate orientation sessions for each group and explain to them what interactions are expected to be happening within the context of the classroom or the library or wherever they're meeting. And really emphasize that they really should not be sharing any type of personal information. So an example could be a senior might ask one of the youths to help them set up a bank account, or a senior might say, "Oh, I'd love to keep in touch with you after this program. Can I have your phone number?" So it's important to kind of address situations that might come up and just make sure that each group knows what's expected of them in terms of protecting their personal privacy. If something does happen, despite trying to prevent it through these orientation sessions, make sure that everyone involved, both participants and facilitators, know that there is a duty to report. This is especially important if you're a facilitator who doesn't speak the same language as your participants. You need to build a relationship of trust with your group so that they feel comfortable coming to you if something's going on. So when you're setting up an IG program, there are a couple different strategies that you can use in terms of outreach. We would recommend not trying to reinvent the wheel. So deliver your presentations and put up your marketing materials at places where the youth and the seniors are already congregating. So community programs that you might already have at your organization or in your community, your local library or community center, like Steph mentioned, and also places of worship. Also really leveraged local residence buildings as well. You can use social media to appeal to the youth, especially. Reach out through local neighborhood newsletters or newspapers and try to make sure that you can recruit youth volunteers who speak another language so you can get a more diverse range of participants. Once you do start recruiting people, it's important that you do some type of intake or interview process before the youth and the seniors are matched if you're doing that kind of one-to-one program. So get a sense not only of the languages that they speak, but what is their existing digital literacy knowledge level? What are the goals that they want to achieve through this program? What are they hoping to come away with at the end of the day? And then make sure that you explain the benefits of this program for them, the scope, how often you'll be meeting, what the types of activities you'll be doing, and then the required commitment. So this is especially important for the youth who will be responsible for arriving there on their own. Make sure they know what time, what days, what locations, that type of thing. And then finally, this is really important for IG programs, is scheduling. We emphasize that you set up your programs in places that are transit accessible, like we mentioned, at places where the youth and the seniors are already meeting. So libraries, community centers, youth centers. And it's also really important to schedule the sessions at a time that works for both groups. And in our experience, we found that this is always after school or a weekend afternoon. Please try to avoid scheduling something during rush hour. It can be quite difficult for seniors who are using transit to make it there. And finally, when it comes to group size, the ideal number is usually around 10 to 20 participants in total. So that's 5 to 10 pairs. That's not only for you as a facilitator to maintain some type of control over the room. It's also important for noise tolerance levels for the seniors. And then consider your materials. So if you don't have your own devices for everyone to use and people want to bring their own, make sure you build that into your orientation session, because there is a risk of people revealing private information in that process, or they may feel uncomfortable. So take all those things into consideration when you're developing your program. So we would recommend that you have both an ongoing and final assessment evaluation plan. Try to have them at the end of each session so you can schedule out some time for reflection. You might want to do interviews individually throughout the project. Know who your participants are, not just the total number that you have, but other information that could be useful for your organization should you wish to continue running this kind of programming in the future. And when you do get that information from them, make sure that you explain consent and that everyone knows where this information is going to be stored and how it's going to be used. Make sure you get feedback from your facilitators. They're the ones that are in the programs with the participants. So having regular meetings with staff and facilitators or volunteers, having progress reports is a great way to do that. And try to take lots of pictures and videos throughout your sessions, obviously with consent from your participants. And at the end of your program, don't forget to collect testimonials. They can be useful for presentations like this, but also for further funding applications, for the public to know kind of what you're doing. And it's also really nice for the participants themselves to be able to have those materials. And you can do a post-program survey so you can compare satisfaction rates, what people have learned throughout the program, what skills they've obtained. And it gives you a better sense of how you can design programming in the future based on your participants' wants and needs. So that's it from us at Niche. I'm going to hand it over to Sharon Feldman now.
Thank you. So thank you so much for inviting me in. I'm going to talk about my center, our center, and the program that we run at our center. So as mentioned, I run the Family Resource Center for Jewish Family and Child, which is located in Thornhill. And our center has 4 programs that we run all throughout the year. So the main program that we run is our Family Drop-In, which is a program that's open every day for adults and children 0 to 5 to come and play. So it's a play-based, child-led drop-in program. The other program that we run is the Conversation Cafe, which is a weekly drop-in, it's actually not drop-in, but a program for newcomer seniors to come and practice their, actually it's for newcomer immigrants of any age to come and practice their conversation skills. And that happens twice a week in the morning. We also have a homework club that's for students from grades 4 through 12 to come and get free tutoring support for their education. And we have a clothing cupboard, which offers free clothing to women and children in need. So Our center is a hub for families to come and receive services and programming, multi-age, and our drop-in center is a multi-age, intergenerational. Families come, grandparents can come with their children and they come and play. So that's programming that we run in general, open-ended all the time. So we were excited by the opportunity that was presented to us by Families Canada. Families Canada is the National Association for Family Support Centers, and they recognized that members of Families Canada were expressing that there was a need for more programming and more services for seniors, in particular for immigrant seniors. And at the same time, they were recognizing that seniors and newcomers to Canada were expressing an interest in more opportunities to volunteer, to be of service, to connect with their communities. So based on those two facts, Families Canada decided to design a pilot project and partnered with many organizations, including IRCC, Immigration, Refugees, Citizenship Canada, and Mosaic Canada. And they developed this pilot project for 8 sites that were selected across Canada to run an intergenerational weekly play program for newcomers, seniors, and preschoolers. So we were one of the sites that was selected for that project, and they modeled it after an existing program that's run in the United States that's called Experience Corps. And what Experience Corps is a program where volunteer seniors are paired with elementary age students in school, students that are up to grade 3. And it's a literacy support program. So seniors in that Experience Corps program are essentially tutors who build a relationship. They're paired with a student and they meet with them weekly for the course of a school year. And the program is designed to increase the child's capacity and their literacy skills. And at the same time, obviously, it's going to increase the sense of well-being in the senior. So modeled after that program, Families Canada designed this pilot project for senior newcomers and preschoolers. So as I mentioned, we were one of 8 sites that were selected across the country. Given that we are in Vaughan, we have a very diverse population that we support. And the project involved us recruiting 15 newcomer seniors and 15 preschoolers with their parents to attend our center weekly for the course of a school year. And essentially, the commitment was to come weekly for play dates with toddlers. Because our center already has the drop-in program for families, we knew that, we felt that we were confident that we were going to be able to recruit preschoolers and parents to come for this program. And additionally, because we have the Conversation Cafe program where immigrants are coming to practice their English skills, we were also quite confident that we'd be able to recruit some immigrant seniors to come from that program as well, since all of those people are already accessing our center on a regular basis. So we were quite confident in that. Prior to the start of the project, my staff and our volunteers that are regular volunteers in our center were involved in some extensive training. We were trained in trauma-informed attachment and stages of play and positive discipline and everyday parenting. This is all done through Families Canada. The Positive Discipline Program, the PDEP program, is a key component of this particular project. The PDEP program is an approach to parenting and an approach to interacting with children that is based on respect, human rights, and empathy. And so it's an approach to relationships, and it's a lens that we use in our center in any case. So we were quite excited by the opportunity to have this program as another vehicle to really educate adults and educate seniors on respectful, healthy ways to interact with children. So once we were done with the training component, we were ready to develop our promotion plan. And so we began with outreach to all the organizations that we know about in our community that also support seniors. And we put together literature and promotional information and sent that out. And we met with a lot of our community partners and explained the program, and everybody was quite excited about the prospect of this program. And so we thought, we were again confident that we were going to get a lot of referrals from those those other agencies. And we found that we weren't getting the response that we expected through those promotional channels. So I'm lucky that I have staff in my center who are able to communicate with many of the community groups in our area, the Russian community, the Philippine community, the Israeli community, the Chinese community. So we were able to go out into the community and do presentations in the languages of the seniors. And so we found that that was far better in helping really spark the interest for people to want to come to the center. So we ended up developing a list of people that were potentially interested. But even at that point, it was kind of difficult. And I think that it was mostly about just the language, or the seniors really understanding what it is they were coming for. Because when we said, you're going to come and play with children, I think that was, we thought that was a little bit too vague. We needed more of more of something to create a framework for them. But we did get a lot of names, and we were quite hopeful at that point. We knew that our population of parents and preschoolers would be an easier sell, so they're already coming to the center. So we really focused on recruiting the seniors. What we realized we needed to do, and what we did in the end, was we offered an event day. So we offered a breakfast and essentially a play day for just the seniors. So we closed our center to the families, and we invited the seniors to come for breakfast. And what we did was we set up our center in all different stations that were play stations, basically. We had a station for painting and for beading and for some other cognitive play and puzzles. And we just invited them to come and play. And once they really got a sense for the space, they started to play. I mean, this was the most beautiful thing, was to really see these seniors. And I'm not sure I mentioned, they really did not have much English. The group that we ended up recruiting is very low level English, but they were able to play with one another and communicate through play. And once they really acclimated to the space and had an enjoyable time, they were ready to commit to the project and register into this program. So we ended up recruiting 15 seniors from 7 different countries. So represented in our particular group, we have Romania, Iran, Israel, Philippines, Russia, China, and Argentina. And as I mentioned, many of them have virtually no English, but they are completely committed to this program. And they show up week after week. And we put a breakfast into, we realized that it seemed to be better when the seniors were there first in the morning. Our center opens at 9:30 in the morning to the public. We dedicated the first hour of our morning to this project only. And we opened up for breakfast at 9 o'clock, and we serve a light breakfast to the seniors first. So from 9 to 9:30, the seniors come and they have breakfast and they socialize. This was our plan. And then during that time, we impart some of the education, some of that, how to let the child lead play, how to not interfere with the child's play, how to interact with the child during play. So really that respectful interaction. We used the breakfast time to give kind of one piece. Each week we would have one focal point for them. And what we found over the course of the weeks is that they would show up even earlier, and they would just want to be helping us set up the room. They would want to know what we were setting up. They just want to be helpful, which was beautiful. We were able to, so in terms of recruiting the parents with the toddlers, again, we really felt that this was going to be seamless and simple because we already have that population coming to our center. But we found that it was, again, a bit of a harder sell, possibly because it was seen as a commitment, and the families are coming in a drop-in basis. Some of the other centers, I mentioned there are 8 sites across the country that are running this pilot project. The ones that had partnered with a daycare have an easier time running this project because that daycare is committed to the project, and so they're coming in. But to promote this to parents to come to a center to interact with seniors, we found that it was harder to get them to really understand. So we really did a lot of education about the value to the senior, that this is about reducing social isolation, helping to give them that sense of community. And once we really explained that to people, we found that they were very receptive to it. And so we were able to recruit a body of parents and preschoolers to come into the program as well. So what we've found over, and in terms of the programming, so we were able to recruit, and then we had the programming piece. What's beautiful about our program is that it's very flexible, and that the 8 sites have been given complete autonomy over the content of the program. It's just essentially play. For our center, because we're play-based, child-led, we have been designing it week after week, kind of based on what we see the interests are in the seniors and also in the children. And the seniors have been helpful in terms of setting up the space in their ideas of what they think might be helpful. So we have things like rubber ramps that we might set up, and so the seniors will kind of take control of that and set up a rubber ramp in a certain way. And we've helped them learn what it means to truly let a child take the lead. So if they've set up something at this point in the year, we were able to observe that if a child was doing something different, that they would be flexible. And so they would kind of change the setting of it to meet the child's needs. So that's something that's very different, and something that's part of the mission of the program for us, is helping adults learn to allow that flexibility with the child, because that deepens the relationship and it creates a greater experience for everyone. So one of the most lovely things that's happened in the course of this pilot is that we've had some of the seniors have expressed an interest in continuing to come once this project actually is complete in the spring and summer. They've already expressed an interest in returning and continuing to come to us as volunteers in the program in any capacity, which is a beautiful thing. And we've also watched them go from being quite shy and quite concerned about how they were going to relate to the children, or how they were going to be, quote unquote, successful in the program. And we've watched them flourish in terms of their openness and their confidence in communicating, even without the language skills. Their understanding of play being a language of its own has really been something that's unfolded over the weeks and months that we've been running this project. And so that's where we're at in this project. We're hoping to be able to continue this intergenerational program and offer a time specifically in the day for newcomer seniors in the community to be able to come and have some playtime with the families and with the preschoolers. And we're grateful for the opportunity. And so that's where we're at right now.
Wow, thank you so much, Sharon. I had heard about some programs involving children going to long-term care homes, but I've never heard of children and seniors coming together in a community-based setting, and really having that bottom-up approach, that strength-based approach, where the seniors, the participants, are leading the way, so in program development. So that's really cool. So that was Sharon Feldman from Jewish Child and Family Services in Vaughan, with her program Tots to Seniors. Does anyone have any questions for either Flora or Sharon?
Pam has a question for Sharon. She says, how did you manage the language piece on an ongoing basis during the program?
So we're lucky that we have one participant from our Conversation Cafe group who is our Chinese translator. She's a high level. She's like a level 8, and she comes to our advanced group. So she's our go-to person to communicate with all the people, the Chinese people who do not speak any English. And then, as I mentioned, I have a staff who speaks Russian. I have a staff who speaks Spanish. So I'm lucky that way, that I have people that amongst us that are able to communicate. And even in terms of the education pieces, yes, we need a translator, but for the actual play and the interaction with the parents and with the children, we have just watched it be body language and gestures. And I've actually really appreciated seeing that the seniors are willing to put themselves out there when there is no language to connect them, that they're still able to manage to experience a connection with people without language.
Cloyce Weaver asks all the panelists, is there an ideal youth age for working with seniors for YEP?
Yeah, for YEP, they say 14, but sometimes it can be even younger. I've seen groups in which there were 12 or 13-year-olds, very mature and keen to want to work with seniors. So yeah, it's basically 13 and up is fairly ideal. But I also wanted to speak to the last question to Sharon, if I may, around the language piece. And in doing any of these programs, like we had an elder abuse awareness project that was intergenerational, and from the very get-go, when you're recruiting participants, if you can, and we have the luxury of having staff at North York Community House who can translate documents, and so we would put flyers out in various ethno-cultural media sources, and some of that's free, so you don't have to worry about funding too much. And then getting the participants buy-in who are representative of different language groups, and so that helps.
Actually, Sharon, oh, sorry, Sharon, I was just going to ask you, it's Sharon again. I was going to ask you, how did you find that the seniors who are from all these different, you said how many countries? 7 countries?
Yeah, 7.
How did you find that they got along together? It's a little bit outside of the intergen question, but it's, you know, it's interesting to me that all these people from different countries and cultures and languages got together. How did you find, you know, did their relationships did they get to know each other a little bit non-verbally, or?
Yeah,
you know?
we had to guide that a little bit and create opportunities for that, because they would stay in their pockets, right? So
yeah,
we have, you know, a cluster of Chinese, we have a cluster of Russian, and the breakfast was the opportunity for that. So we did 2 things. One was the breakfast, where we had name tags for everyone. We noticed that when we just left the name tags out, they would put on their name tags and they would just stay with their groups and speak their own language. So then we started putting the name tags out at the table and intermixing them, so that they would be sitting next to somebody who wasn't from their country, that would force them to then interact with one another. We have a couple of key people in the group that seem to be more social. They're more social connectors. So regardless, and they have higher skill set in English. So they were kind of bridging the gap between. So that was one of the things we did. The other thing we did was we have a volunteer who comes in the mornings, and she is responsible for taking video and taking photos of the interactions between the seniors and the preschoolers. So during breakfast, sometimes we will show those clips to the seniors watching, so they get to see themselves interacting with the children. And that seems to be a springboard for a little bit of interaction amongst them. Like there was a day that we brought out bubbles for the seniors. So the seniors were blowing bubbles for the children, and they had to share, you know, they had to show each other. We had different ways, and with bigger ones and smaller ones. And we did some language with them that way. And it was super fun we were shocked, not shocked, but pleasantly surprised at how much more fun it seemed for the seniors sometimes than the children. We're used to the kids having fun, but when the seniors were having fun blowing bubbles, that was just ideal.
Because it's probably new for them. I bet some of them have never blown bubbles before.
Exactly. So that's another piece of it, which is why we had the first play date was just for them to interact. And we realized they need to play more. They need more opportunities for play. They need more opportunities to be creative, and to just have that open-ended. So that's happened also. That's another vehicle. We would set up, stations or set up the room in such a way that they can be interactions with the adult and child. But then we would set up kind of in a corner, a beading table, so there'd be 4 of them together, just the seniors doing a little bit of beading, and interacting with one another there. So we used play as the vehicle to connect them. And so they've developed rapport with one another as well. It's taken time, but.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Thank you.
So there's a question, there are 2 questions in the Q&A part. So someone asks, is confidentiality a common issue? It must be difficult at times to ensure that seniors do not develop relationships with the youth or the children outside of the IG program. And then the same person also asks how to handle possible racism if you're working with a diverse group.
We haven't had those issues come up in our program. I think probably by virtue of our center being so diverse in general. Like even the parents and children that are coming to the center are from various countries. There's not one group that is more represented than another, I don't think. So we really have that equal playing field for everyone. So we really haven't had that. And confidentiality, again, in this particular program, we haven't had that as an issue. It might be more, Stephanie, in your program, it might be because it's youth and because they're really one-to-one. You might be able to speak more to that.
Yeah, there was only one incident that I could pinpoint in our partnership with Youth Empowering Parents during a computer class. One of the older participants wanted the phone number of his young mentor, and we had to speak with him privately, and we just did it respectfully, and we made sure that the youth felt supported and safe, and we explained to the senior participants that she was not comfortable being his mentor anymore, and he understood, and so he was able to still finish the course, and he was matched with a male mentor, and the female youth was matched with someone else, and she finished the course as well. Around racism, there was one situation where we just had to take the person aside and just explain that we knew that her intentions weren't negative or hurtful, but that the consequences could be harmful to people hearing her words. So yeah, it's just it's more common sense, but we do have everybody talk about guidelines around respect before programs begin, and that kind of helps set the stage.
So we probably have time for one more question, 1 or 2. Cloyce Weaver asks, both groups seem to have great social emotional benefits for the participants. What have you done to collect data on this?
So ours is a pilot project. It's a research project that's being overseen by Families Canada. So there are researchers that are involved in the program. We're essentially delivering the program, and the researchers are coming in to collect data. So they did the initial intake interviews. They've come out to observe our program. So they're handling all of that. From our perspective, in terms of me and my team, we're just taking note of all of the growth that's happened so that we can use this information and develop a program afterwards. Everything that we do, part of the mission is always about the social emotional growth, the reducing social isolation, community capacity building. So this checks all those boxes.
Similarly, we do pre and post surveys for both the youth and the senior participants. And then we share that to the funder, and we'll also be sharing evaluation results on our webpage on the Niche North York Community House website. And those testimonials, they're so powerful. And the photos, once you get consent from people to use their image, and you share those photos. So we do that regularly through our Niche newsletter and our AGM, so that the community members can, so we give back to the participants and those community members who gave so much of their time, but also in the end learned a lot, learned skills, learned some valuable lessons from youth and vice versa. Okay, well, if there were questions we haven't answered, maybe we can do so when we're sending out the materials. And Youth Empowering Parents also is sharing their facilitator guidebook and some curricula. So that could be helpful to programs that you might want to start yourselves. You can also get in touch with Youth Empowering Parents. And thanks to others who have mentioned community partners. One of our community partners, Big Brothers Big Sisters of Toronto, has been a huge mentor to us as an organization throughout our Caregiver Senior Project and just around peer mentorship. So, and Sharon Feldman, thanks so much. I've learned so much from you and your program. And I'm glad I found you because I had heard about the program in Vaughan, and it's just amazing. And looking at all the comments, it sounds like you've inspired a lot of people.
Yes, and thank you to you as well. I was really, I wished I was taking notes on your program when you were talking about yours, because I'd love to implement something like that at our center as well. I know there's so many seniors. We have a senior volunteer. She's 84 years old. She is a retired speech language pathologist from South Africa. She's phenomenal, but she struggles with technology. She's brilliant, but she's asked to do Zoom meetings and I've taught her how to use Zoom, and I've taught her how to, I've taught her things, but I'm thinking I really would love to run a program just to help seniors with their tech capacity. So I really appreciated your presentation as well. And I've been,
you should check with Diane. You should check with Diane at the Patel Center and see if you can do something with us.
I'd love to do that, Sharon. I'd love that.
Program. Yeah.
Thank you both for inviting me in.
Okay, thank you everyone for joining. Like Steph mentioned, we'll be sure to send out the recording of this webinar as well as the presentation and also YEP's toolkit. So thank you all again.